Hello, dear listeners. Whether you came here intentionally or just happened to click in by chance, I sincerely welcome you and thank you for joining me in this little space called The Middle Way. This is my very first podcast episode, and before we dive into today's reflection, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Marlene, a name I chose for myself, so it's easier for you to call me and maybe remember me more easily. Grew up in a small wooden house, no proper bedroom, just a mat, a blanket, and the sound of wind sneaking through the wooden planks during the cold season. I walked about 5 kilometers to school every day, through rain, heat, and dust, but the nature along the way was incredibly beautiful. Tall trees, bird songs, and endless green rice fields, they became my silent companions. At school, we had state-sponsored lunch, just one dish a day, usually a soup, in one big pot served to the whole class. We sat in groups of 5 or 6, placed our individual bags of rice in front of us, and shared a single bowl of soup with one spoon in the middle. Sometimes we'd fight over the food, sometimes we shared kindly, but those moments were warm, full of connection, and surprisingly joyful. My parents worked in the city, leaving me with my grandparents, who raised me the best they could, with sun-worn hands and simple meals cooked with love. But as I grew older, things started to change. My father turned to alcohol, and my mother fell into gambling. Stress, debt, and broken dreams led to endless fights between them. I was about 15 or 16 years old then, still just a child, yet having to absorb the storm of adult emotions. I often cried under my blanket, wrote letters to my mom I never sent, and began questioning everything, life, suffering, and why we have to hurt so much. One ordinary day, I was overwhelmed by pain again, hurt by people around me, especially a friend who spoke badly about me behind my back. I kept thinking about it the whole day, feeling angry and deeply hurt. Then, while showering alone that night, a realization struck me. I thought, wait, I'm the only one here, hurting. They're not here. They're not thinking about me, but I keep replaying it in my head. It was that exact moment I woke up. Suddenly, it felt like a mist had lifted, and I could see that I was simply sending my thoughts back to those stories, and in doing so, I created my own pain. The sadness, the anger, it was mine alone, and I could also let it go. That was the first time I realized what it meant to awaken. There was no one in that bathroom except me, my body, and my mind. I wasn't truly suffering from their actions. I was suffering from my thoughts about their actions, and once I saw that, all of it started to dissolve. It wasn't emptiness in a sad way, but a gentle emptiness, a peaceful spaciousness that came when I stopped clinging. It was a simple truth, but profound, like discovering a hidden key that had always been in your pocket. Since that day, I started recognizing my emotions more clearly. When sadness or fear came, I could say, "Oh, my mind is drifting there again," and the watcher, the inner awareness, would return, not because I forced it, but because I simply noticed. Another powerful moment came when my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and I had only about $30 to my name. I felt powerless, scared, and broken. But then another voice in me emerged, a clear one, the voice of wisdom. I realized then I couldn't control anything in this game of life. Nothing was waiting for me to be ready. Life just unfolds as it does, with its own causes and conditions. And in that chaos I saw that if everything arises from causes, then I could begin to change things, not all at once, but by creating small causes, small seeds of effort, until they combine to shift something larger. That day I understood dependent origination for the first time, not from books, but from the rawness of my own experience. What surprised me was, the world around me didn't change at all after I awakened. People were still the same, misunderstandings still happened, life still threw its messes. But something deep inside me had shifted. I was no longer the same. I no longer felt like the suffering was mine. It was just a result of many causes coming together, trying to push itself onto me. But I didn't accept it anymore. I simply saw it for what it was, and a momentary state of mind. That's when I realized I'm just a passenger in a vehicle called awareness. I don't need to control everything. I just need to observe, stay conscious, and respond with wisdom. The world is still the same, but my relationship to it has transformed. And the knower, that silent awareness within, had always been there, patiently waiting for me to notice. This is the beginning of my journey on the middle way, not avoiding, not clinging, just standing in the center, seeing things as they are. It's not mystical, it doesn't require religion or complex teachings. It just needs a heart willing to see the truth inside. Thank you for walking with me this far. In the next episode, we'll explore more deeply. What is this knower, Zrania, and how can we touch it within our own lives? If you'd like to continue the journey with me, please follow, like, or leave a comment. I'm always happy to listen, and I wish you mindfulness every day. Thank you. The Middle Way, Chapter 1, Part 2, The Knower. What is the knower? In the simplest terms, it is self-awareness, the state of being aware of your own body and mind in the present moment. It sounds simple, even ordinary, but it is incredibly powerful. Most people live their lives swept away by emotions. When joy arises, they merge with the joy, unaware that they are joyful. When sadness arises, they become sadness itself, unaware they're even grieving. They are not observers of emotion, they are entangled within it. Occasionally, people do experience the knower without realizing it. For example, someone might be crying and suddenly realize, why am I crying over something that's already gone? That moment of reflection is wisdom, but the knower is more than that. It is the calm awareness that perceives the mind and body without judgment, without clinging, simply witnessing. When the knower arises, everything else fades, sadness, happiness, even neutrality. What remains is a quiet clarity. You might notice, oh, my mind is wandering. That noticing, that simple recognition, is the knower. This awareness is not permanent. It arises and fades like everything else in the universe. Just like stars are born and die, so too do our thoughts and emotions. And like those stars, emotions shine brightly for a while. Joy, pain, boredom, only to dissolve. Without awareness, we become entangled in those emotions. We become the inhabitants of each mental state, unaware of how often we shift from one mood to another. But the knower is not an inhabitant. It is a witness. It sees clearly. It doesn't cling. And when it arises, even for a moment, it brings a freedom, a space within. When suffering arises, the knower doesn't try to fight it. It simply sees, suffering is here. And in that seeing, suffering begins to dissolve. That is the power of the knower, to meet life not with resistance, but with awareness. Thank you for continuing this journey with me. If you find peace in this message, please follow, like, or comment. I'll see you again in the next chapter. Until then, may you walk gently in awareness.